Rasulillah. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, I would like to take this opportunity to greet you with the greetings of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, several of us have to catch our flights to different parts of the world. So inshallah, without wasting any time, I would like to give the parole to Professor Ahmet first, who will speak about the current Muslim experience in the political sphere. Fadl Ustad.
Thank you very much, Selim Hoca. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. As Selim Hoca said, I will have to leave immediately after my presentation, so sorry, it's nothing to do with respect to the other speaker or the team, which I am very keen on, yeah? So now, the topic is very broad, and I could do what we usually do. We complain about problems and issues we don't control, Muslims don't control. And that's, you know, Islamophobia, discrimination, dishonest foreign policy, rise of the right, authoritarian policies. You know, I've been following, for 16 years, I've been part of this editorial board for the Yearbook of Muslims in Europe. So I read that, I get my bit of it every year. Now, I want to do something else. Obviously, very broad topic, and I cannot address almost anything, but just focus on one or two things. Now, what I notice in all of our talk about Muslim experience with politics in Europe, especially in the Balkans, is the lack of autonomy, of agency, dependency, weakness upon weakness, and so on. It's always we are objects of politics. We are rarely subject or actors of it. So, and then the case be so, Muslim politics today is about crisis management, okay? Extinguishing fires, emergency politics. Now, the problem with it is that imagine your healthcare system consisting only of emergency units. I mean, you need emergency units, but if all your healthcare system boils down or is reduced to just emergency room, then you're not going, that's not going to get you far. What is lacking, I think, in my opinion, is two-level engagement. Obviously, we do have to have this crisis management politics because you have to stay afloat, you have to survive until tomorrow, you know. We cannot wait for the caliphate to be established. And by default, these politics, these measures are reactionary. And very often they boil down to rearranging the existing human and other resources without much added value. And, we have seen it multiple times in Bosnia. And you can do it once or twice, but you cannot keep doing it that way, you know. Doesn't matter how good cook you are, if you get really terrible ingredients, you may improve it a bit, but you can never make a very good dish out of, suboptimal ingredients. So what is needed is to work on provision, supply of these better ingredients. Improving communities' capabilities, potential, resilience, and therefore its chances. Now, I asked, just for the sake of exercise, before I come to that, so we have to work on the sources of strength, of power. And these, as you I'm sure know, both for individuals and communities, they range, from shared values, cohesion, to all types of resources. Now, I'll show the list that AI generated for me just for the sake of exercise. I asked it, what are the sources of strength of communities, and it came with the list. So when you have a look at it, when you do kind of SWOT analysis, short, quick SWOT analysis, the depressing part of it is that basically everything is missing. Almost all components, all ingredients of strength are missing in case of Muslim communities. Now, the encouraging part or finding of this analysis is that few sources on that list are external to the community. And I'll show you the list. In other words, communities at the moment might be powerless vis-a-vis, different challenges, but if they were to focus on long-term strategies, then it would be different. Have a look at this, for instance. Shared identity, the sources of strength, internal and external. Internal strength, shared identity, purpose, values, norms. You don't need anybody's permission or license to work on those. Social cohesion, leadership, economic resources. Is the list there? Not yet? Sorry, yeah.
There is a list.
It's now there. So education and knowledge distribution, sharing. This is AI. This is not very academic, just AI, good governance.
New fashion, huh?
Yeah, health. Sometimes it fails you, sometimes it's very convenient, it brings you. Security, cultural heritage, faith and spirituality. Then you go to, resilience in adversity, innovation and flexibility, youth engagement. Like this resilience, Muslims focus trying to avoid trouble. No, trouble will come, and you cannot control it. Earthquake will happen, wars will happen, crises will happen, all types of, viruses, epidemics. That usually we don't control. What you control is your resilience to it. Are you ready? So we should be focusing on, on the resilience aspect of it, not on whether it will happen, one way or the other, one type or the other. Now, look at the external strength. So far, all these, and there are like 10 plus sources of strength, they are all basically, we control them, okay? I'm not saying fully, but we control them. External strength of communities, alliances and partnerships, of course, it takes two to dance, but still, you can work on it. Now, probably the only two that are outside the control of Muslim communities in Europe are external recognition and support, but again, you can do something about it. And then finally, geography and natural resources, that's, but these are probably the least important ones, as we now know. So, this being the case, okay, we don't have what it takes to be strong and powerful, but what I noticed lately is that instead of doing what Yusuf alayhi salam did when he understood the dream of Pharaoh, he laid out, I don't know if you have noticed this, I noticed this during the pandemic. He laid out a very rational approach to it. He said, let's do it. Roll up your sleeves, let's work for 7 years. And then 7, you can just, you can forget it. Don't even bother to do anything because it's not going to pay back. So, no, when the pandemic started, some of Bosnian imams, first thing they said is, this is punishment for Chinese because of what they do to Uyghurs. And then in 2 weeks, it was in Sarajevo. And for heaven's sake. I was struck that Yusuf alayhi salam wasn't talking about it being punishment for Egyptians. He said, let's do it. So what worries me is that there is irrationalism is on the rise among Muslims. And I don't have time to tell you the stories, the cases which have led me to this conclusion, including among university professors. Okay, I understand some sheikh in, yeah. And Corona, I think, made it very clear that we have issues with science. We haven't really managed to, and this is very relevant for politics. If you can't reconcile science and Iman, then how are you going to find your way through the politics, which is much more complicated? So, to me, this rise of irrationalism is somehow a sign of desperation, helplessness, hopelessness, whatever. But that's exactly one of the things that we shouldn't be doing, and I'm coming to that. Anyway, Another observation of me is that our leadership, both within political parties and religious establishments, don't have much appreciation for planning for Yusuf alayhi salam program, which is planning, which is expertise, which is no. I've sat on those advisory boards, and you realize after a while, these are just window dressing. They don't really care about, they just want your name and prof, you know, the rest they know. So that's really worrying. Now the problem with, let me go back to one of those current approach in politics, which is just every new group that we have hopes that enters politics, hopes that we just rearrange people and resources and we will solve it. At least in the Balkans, because of our ethnic composition and constitutional arrangements, you have to deal with war criminals, with criminals, current criminals, corrupt people, simply because, see, you are a Bosniak in Bosnia. You may win majority among the Bosniaks, but you don't control two other constituencies without whom you cannot. So you have to deal with criminals and corrupt people. So the result is that our political life, our politics, burn people very fast. You don't last. Because you have to sit and you are the same. You have to be same. So what you need supply of new people, and that's missing. And nobody thinks like, okay, what do we do next day? So the result is cynicism, apathy, indifference. We have a saying, I don't know if anybody understands Bosnian here, Sjaši kurta da uzješe murta. Basically, get off Murad for Haris to get up on the horse, but it's basically the same. Horse is going to, or donkey is going to carry someone. Yeah, but this is, I think, the worst that can happen to Muslim politicians who hope to mobilize. Because if you don't, I mean, look at the books or the production of this year economic Nobel Prize winners. You know, people stop at the institutional level, but actually what they are talking about is about how institutions motivate or demotivate people. That's the point. They say, oh, institutions. No, both extractive and inclusive institutions are institutions. The difference between them is that one type of institutions, you have to motivate people. So if your politics actually make people indifferent, then it's the end of the game. How do we get there? I think first many things, but one thing is that there are no shortcuts. We have tried, Muslims have tried, some of you know a brother who got actually ministerial position in Sweden. You know, he was out faster than he got in. Yeah, because, you know, there is no ground war, there are no shortcuts, I think, to me. And then hard work. I think we are not doing enough, not at all. I think far too little we are doing to prepare things. I still have some time. Now, obviously, having to work short term and long term is enormous. And then the list of things that need to be improved and set properly is long. So we need to do priorities, to set our priorities, to focus on impact rather on convenience, to be agile. I think one of the lessons we have learned in Bosnia, I have observed, I don't say we have learned, is that, you know, you have to be really like, you're small enough, you can't create opportunities, you can't create trends, you can't create tides. The best you can hope for is to ride the tide when it emerges. And if you are not ready, if you are not agile enough, you know, door opens and closes. If you are not in those few seconds, you are left. We had those, I can give you examples. For instance, these days, if you talk to Bosnian politicians, patriots, mainly Bosniaks, they will tell you it's hard. Why it's hard? Because, you know, Croatian bloc is united, Serb bloc is united. That's true. I admit, at the moment, it's very tough. You know what they don't tell you is that for 12 years, the leadership in Zagreb was against the Croat party, main Croat party in Bosnia. For 12 years, they slept. For about 8-10 years, Serb community was politically split. Did we? No. We were sleeping, looking who will get what in Old Town, what property, and so on. So agility, for us, who are relatively small, we have to really be like ready to seize the opportunity. I don't think we can hope to, we are not like Soros, able to move things. No, you have to know your level at which you are playing, and that's one. I think equally, if not more important, is what must not be done. Okay, and I think we have to learn these few rules. First, do no harm. For instance, by going extreme. I hope we have learned this once and forever. Doesn't lead anywhere. I know especially young people, they tend to think, oh, your approach, your this diplomacy or whatever, it leads nowhere. Okay, where does militarism lead? It leads nowhere. So I hope we have learned that, like in medicine, you know, first rule is do no harm. Do not give up. Persevere. That's what your enemy wants you, either to go extreme or to give up. And then, at the moment, at least in the Balkans, one of the major problems, I am always for pluralism. I have studied all my life. I have advocated for pluralism among the Muslims and so on. But at the moment, it's total fragmentation. It's nothing to do with pluralism. And then you have two forces are driving this fragmentation. Those who want to control everything and abuse the idea of unity and so on, but it's basically unity like Saddam Hussein type. It's unity where I control everything. Or those who are, I don't know how to call them, purist, in the name of anti-corruption, in the name of this or that, you know, they can't work with anybody, you know? They will always find a reason not to be with the, you know. So I think we have two excesses, and they are not very helpful. They are not healthy at all.
What is your proposal then?
We have to be aware of importance of working together, building alliances. You know. So I think, again, avoiding two extremes. Unity, and for instance, in Bosnia, we have seen these verses on unity being abused for certain political parties. And then they quote to you ayat and a hadith about how laysa minna man keda, you know. But they never quote to you, for instance, laysa minna man agashana fa laysa minna. You don't hear that from certain parties. And then you go to others, they just quote the second one, you know. They never quote wa'tasimu bihablillah. You see, so we have really two extremes. It's not just one extreme. It's two types of extremes, I think. But to be optimistic, let me mention to you an example. I think my friend is going to have a much more positive presentation. It's simply, that's how the moment is, talking about Bangladesh at the moment. But I want to bring to your attention an experience of a Balkan Muslim community, which is, I think, a success story, and that's a Muslim community in Montenegro. They really, you know, it's about less than 1/5 of the population there, but they have managed, I think, in the last 20 years to make a major change in their capabilities, to improve their potentials, to improve their resilience. They have used those 20 plus years to increase their human capacities, resources, their infrastructure, and so on. So even if some troubles were to affect that community now, as it did actually in 2020, there was a huge political earthquake which was potentially anti-Islamic, Islamophobic. They were able to resist it in ways that they couldn't in 2000, for instance. Why? Because they really used those 20 years to improve their potentials. I better stop here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Ustad Ahmet, for this stimulating discussion. It is indeed, he has tackled many issues that concern all of us in different parts of the world. We would like to listen to you more, but we are afraid that you are going to miss your flight.
Yes. So maybe I
All right.
One question. There is one.
If there is only one question addressing Professor Ahmet Alibasic, yes, Brother Serkan, introduce yourself and address your question in a short.
Thank you for all the speakers. Thanks to all and thanks to Mr. Selim. My questions to speakers maybe.
Yeah, since he spoke only, yes.
There is no caliph, no Khalifa in the, at the head of the Islamic world. And we, the Islamic world, have the power to lead and create the Khalifa among ourselves. So what must we do it? Because maybe we can solve there's many problems. Because every Muslim group, when we go some countries, going this way, this way, this way, so and we should they should bring people in one center the world.
Yeah.
What must we do it?
See, this is question for another, for the previous session. But I tell you this, we hear similar reasoning in Bosnia often. You know, we can't resolve problem at the level of single institution or municipality. They say this is because, I don't know, state is not working, or I always think this way. I don't know, maybe we have enemies, maybe there is conspiracy, maybe it would be better if. But I know one thing, when I go to my home place, which is like now 100% Muslim, are the services any better than in institutions or areas where we have mixed communities and then there are always vetoes and blockades, and they are not? Our institutions don't work where we are 100% Muslim. So I think, well, I'm sure for certain things we need caliph, we need unity, we need, you know, these universal Muslim institutions. But there is so much that needs to be done before and can be done before that, and that would improve a lot our state of affairs. This is my thinking. Thank you very much for your...
Before you leave, I have one question. You know, in keeping in mind the current developments in the Balkan regions, especially the tension between Serbia, Croatia, and Bosnia, how do you see and evaluate the future of Muslim politics in the region?
I was talking to a friend before the session. I can't say I'm very optimistic. You know, if you are not ready, if you are not paying attention, doesn't matter how many chances, even when it is like pure chance, you somehow manage to miss it. You know, for instance, this war in Ukraine was an excellent opportunity for us in the Balkans, because finally region was again in focus. There was a lot of readiness to, you know, get the Balkans in and so on. Unfortunately, we have squandered that. We have missed that opportunity too, because we are not ready. We, you know, can you imagine that in the canton of Sarajevo, which is overwhelmingly Muslim, there was a lot of talk about, you know, when the new government comes in, things will be different. I mean, for more than 2 years now, they can't appoint general manager of our main university hospital in the country. And they came to power on the agenda of, you know, curbing corruption and inefficiency and so on and so forth.
Crisis in the management.
No, they cannot appoint the
Okay, so
and then they keep complaining about Serb politicians. That's all true, but
okay.
unfortunately,
Thank you. Thank you very much, and have a safe flight. Okay, before you leave, we are going to present a souvenir for you. And don't forget your...
it's not mine.
it's not yours. Okay. Then, okay, I'll keep it. Who is going to present?
You are.
Okay, yourself, please.
Thank you.
Shukran. Selam to Bosnia. No problem, no problem. Safe flight and safe journey back home. Okay, I have to say a few things which I'm supposed to state at the beginning of this panel session. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the organizers and planners of this important forum. For the last 3 days, many prominent speakers have dealt many important issues, eye-catching topics actually, which we benefit a lot. Thanks must also goes to all the participants who came from different parts of the world to Istanbul, to Turkey, and contributed in realizing this forum. Thank you, and Jazakumullahu khairal jaza. There is another concern that I have to address and clarify. Since I am representing an official religious organization, which is called Diyanet, and our panel title is about politics. So we have been accused in Europe by many that Diyanet and Diyanet officials always deal with the politics, but it's just a coincidence, and I had to take care of few things, few issues in the first 2 days. So there's only one panel that I'm supposed to chair, and that is the politics, and that's a coincidence. People who want to take this opportunity and attack again us as Diyanet, please keep in mind. Now let's come back to our main topic, and now we have another distinguished guest from Bangladesh. We are in this part of the world actually closely watching the developments, the events that are unfolding in that part of the world, and we don't want to know, this is a question, we don't want to know what happened, but we want to know what really happened in Bangladesh. Please enlighten us, brother Mahmudur Rahman, and the parole is yours. Shukran.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished Chair, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Before I start, let me give you my background a little bit. I'm a former energy advisor to the government of Bangladesh, former, very long ago, 20 years ago. But presently I'm an editor of a very popular newspaper in Bangladesh, an author and a political analyst. So that's my identity, okay? Before I start talking about Bangladesh politics, let me share my thought about Muslim world. Because I think this is very relevant. You see, there are about 2 billion Muslims in the world, only second to the population of the Christian population, which is about 2.4 billion. OIC has got 57 member states. There are 4 places where Muslim countries are predominant. One is, of course, the Middle East. Second is Central Asia. The third is North Africa. And the fourth is South Asia. But the Muslims are fragmented among sects, among ethnicity, among Shia-Sunni divide, and among nationalism. And this fragmentation has facilitated the rise of Islamophobia in the world, actually. So I think, is the Muslim world or so-called Islamic world an utopia? That's my question. Because if there was a Muslim world, then the Zionist Israel would not have dared to continue its genocide in Gaza for more than 14 months now. If there was an ummah, existence of any ummah, then the brutal Israeli soldiers would not have dared to kill hundreds of thousands of Palestinian babies and infants by sniper. They would not have dared to flatten every single educational institution in Gaza. They would not have dared to flatten every single mosque in Gaza. Gaza is nothing but a graveyard today. So that is the condition of the so-called Muslim world or Islamic world. Having said that, now I change my topic to Bangladesh and South Asia because this is important to understand the situation of the Islamic world. Otherwise we'll talk about utopia only. Now, Bangladesh is part of the South Asia. And South Asia is the largest region in the world in terms of population. nearly 1 in 5 or more than 1 in 5 people on earth, they live in South Asia. And South Asia consists of 8 countries, starting from Afghanistan, which is a border state between Central Asia and South Asia. Then there are 3 countries within the Indian subcontinent, which are India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. The 2 Himalayan states of Nepal and Bhutan, and 2 island nations of Maldives and Sri Lanka. So these are the 8 states of South Asia. And out of these 8 states, 4 are Muslim states: Pakistan, Afghanistan, Maldives, and Bangladesh. 2 are Hindu states: India and Nepal. 2 are Buddhist states: Sri Lanka and Bhutan. So that's what is South Asia is, because this is important to understand the Bangladesh, the geographical location of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is like an island of Muslim people, surrounded by the states of different faith. It's a very interesting place geographically, because we are also population-wise a large country. We have a population of 170 million, and out of 170 million, 90% are Muslims. But there is a more than 4,000 kilometer long land border between India and Bangladesh, and India is a Hindu country. And the other side of Bangladesh, the eastern side, we have a land border with Myanmar, which is a Buddhist country. So from Bangladesh, if we start going eastward, the first Muslim country you have is Malaysia. And if you start moving westward, then the first Muslim country is Pakistan, which is separated by more than 2,000 kilometers of Hindu India. So these are important to understand the dangerous geographical situation of Bangladesh, because we want to keep our independence, we want to keep our faith. That's the challenge for Bangladesh. Having said that, I mean, the politics of Bangladesh is, I was hearing from my friend from Bosnia, they have a different problem. The Bangladesh problem is entirely different. Our problem is to face the challenge from a very powerful hegemonic neighbor, and which is a Hindu India. So that's a altogether different challenge, you know. And India, since 1947, when the subcontinent was divided between Pakistan and India, India has tried to impose a hegemonic control in South Asia. That was their target from 1947. And very interestingly, Pakistan was the challenger to that hegemonic aspiration. Although India is much larger, about 75% of the land of South Asia belong to India. It is militarily much superior. They have huge material resources, economically, 3rd largest economy in the world. So they are very powerful, atomic power. But Pakistan is also atomic power, although economically much weaker, but it's atomic power, and it gives it a sort of, a right to challenge the hegemony of India. And they have successfully has done it. Interestingly, Bangladesh was part of Pakistan once. Until 1971, it was part of Pakistan. So why the Pakistan was divided? Again, because of the ethnicity, ethnic difference, and because of the linguistic difference. Because Bangladesh is a country where the language is called Bengali. And Pakistan, they have different languages, the Punjabi, the Sindhis, the Pashto, and different languages. So what happened in Bangladesh, in 1952, there was a language movement in Bangladesh when the people of Bangladesh, they wanted Bengali to be the state language of Pakistan, which the ruling class of Pakistan denied. But the Bengali people thought that because the number of people they were the majority in the united Pakistan. The majority people were Bengali. So they demanded that since we are the majority, Bengali should be the national language because we are the majority. But it was denied, and then when that ethnic difference, the linguistic difference, the cultural differences, that became more wider than the sense of Ummah. Because the only connection between East and West Pakistan was the religion, was the Islam, was the Deen. But when the linguistic identity or the ethnicity or the ethnic identity became stronger, then the Ummah identity, then the glue of Pakistan was broken. And India took full advantage of that situation, and India militarily intervened in 1971 to divide Pakistan. So it was a big victory for India when they divided Pakistan in 1971. Incidentally, tomorrow is the day, the 16th December, is the victory day, which is celebrated in Bangladesh, because that is the day when the Pakistan army, they surrendered to Indian army in 1971 on 16th of December. But very interesting, after East Pakistan became Bangladesh, India thought that the people of Bangladesh will soon, they will dilute their deen and they will become more Bengali. That means they will be more Hinduized. You know, so they thought that there will be a cultural change among the people of East Pakistan or Bangladesh, and they will become more friendly to the Hindu culture than to the Islamic culture. But surprisingly, that didn't happen. That didn't happen in Bangladesh. The Bangladeshi people, they maintained their Islamic heritage. They maintained their Islamic culture. And then, because of that, actually, India failed in imposing hegemony over Bangladesh, because the Bangladeshi people maintained their Islamic identity and heritage. So India tried to impose that, the hegemony over Bangladesh, because they wanted the Eastern, the newly independent country, the Bangladesh, it should be it should be a part of the Indian security parameter. That's their thought, that Eastern Front will look after the Indian security interest. And India tried it so long, and then India succeeded for a certain period. Now I'm coming to your question, that what has happened in Bangladesh. When the recently toppled government of Sheikh Hasina, I mean, she was toppled on 5th of August this year. Before that, it was Sheikh Hasina ruling the country for more than 15 years. It was totally an autocratic rule, authoritarian rule, and there was no democracy, no human rights, nothing. There was extreme form of Islamophobia. And India could control, India could impose its hegemony under Sheikh Hasina ruled Bangladesh for more than 15 years. But the people didn't like it. You know, the people, because the freedom of the people were taken away. The sovereignty of the country was not there. There was farcical elections, managed elections. After 2008, the people of Bangladesh, especially the young people, they were not allowed to exercise their rights of franchise. There was no election. There was all single-party election. Bangladesh was basically a single-party state for the 15 years. And the young people were not happy about it. And finally, it was a revolution. Let me tell you a very interesting 2-3 stories. I wrote a book in 2019, and the title of my book was The Political History of Muslim Bengal. And interestingly, the book was written while I was in jail. I was in jail for 5 years also in Bangladesh because of my opposition to Indian hegemony and because of my opposition to Sheikh Hasina's dictatorship. So I was in jail for a long time, 5 years is a long time. So I wrote that book while I was in jail. So in that book, in the concluding chapter, I asked 2 questions. I asked myself, I asked to my readers, and I asked the question to the Bangladeshi people, that okay, the government of Bangladesh under Sheikh Hasina has accepted Indian hegemony, but will Bangladeshi people accept Indian hegemony? Will Bangladeshi people surrender their Islamic heritage? That was my question in the book. And then again in my PhD thesis, and incidentally, the title of my PhD thesis is The Rise of Indian Hegemon and Security of Small States in South Asia. That's the title of my PhD thesis. And there also, I asked similar question. And I said in that thesis that in all probability, it is not sustainable. The people, India will not be able to sustain its hegemonic control against the will of 170 million people. Okay, Bangladesh is militarily weak, economically a poor country, but 170 million people, it's a big force. So that was my conclusion also. in my thesis that in Bangladesh it is not going to be sustainable. The third interesting story, in the last week of July, I gave an interview with Yeni Shafak, which is a Turkish media outlet. And there I said, in July last week, that probably the end game has started. And probably Sheikh Hasina is not going to survive. Oh, and one more
Before the
fall of Hasina, of course.
Okay, very
before
interesting.
The fall of Hasina. You can visit YouTube and find what I said in that with Yeni Shafak. And very interesting, one more interesting story about myself, about my identity. I'm also a Turkish citizen. So I'm a dual citizen. I'm a Bangladeshi citizen and also a Turkish citizen. So I said that probably the end game has started. So at the end of the day, what happened? It is the young people. It is the young students of universities and colleges. They said enough is enough. So we want to change. We want our freedom back. And we want the sovereignty of the country returned. So that's how the movement started in Bangladesh. And there is an interesting story, let me tell you, which changed the entire scenario of the fight against Indian hegemony. There was a young boy. His name was Abu Said. And he was a fighter against this hegemonic power. He's a part of this revolution. And he was a final year student in English literature in one of the universities. What he did, he faced the police of Sheikh Hasina. And the police they were pointing guns at him. And he was alone. And he stood there with outstretched hand. And the police fired. And they fired point blank on his chest. He fell down. And then he again got up. With all his energy, he got up again. And again, somehow, he challenged the police of the autocratic regime. And the police again fired. And he died. And that changed the entire psyche of the country. The fear of authoritarianism was gone. In that one instance, in that one sacrifice of Abu Said, the fear was completely gone. The entire nation came to the street. All the young people came to the street. Every girl said, Abu Said is my brother. Every woman said, Abu Said is my son. Every young boy said, Abu Said is my idol. So entire nation came to the street. There were further killing. More than 1,500 people were killed by the police. But again, millions came. So nobody could stop that tide of revolution. And ultimately, Hasina had to say goodbye. And she had to flee. And she fled to her master, to India. She fled to Delhi. She is still now in Delhi. And Bangladesh is now ruled by a Nobel laureate, Dr. Yunus. He is a 2006 Nobel Prize winner in peace. He's a very famous person. He visited Turkey many, many times, Professor Yunus. And we are hoping that we will finally be independent. And look at what is happening in this year. This may be a watershed year for the Muslim world. Because after Hasina fled, Bashar also fled. Mm-hmm. And look at the similarity between the two autocrats.
And we don't know who's next.
I know, I may guess, I don't know. So look at that. Hasina also had a sort of a family fiefdom in Bangladesh because her father was the leader in 1971. His name was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And Hasina used the legacy of her father. And her father was also ousted in the military coup in 1975, and he was killed in the military coup in 1975. But Hasina used the name of her father as a legacy, as a sort of inherent right to rule the country. Assad did the same thing. He used the name of his father. And after the fall of Hasina, every single statue of Sheikh Mujib, her father, were toppled in Bangladesh. Not a single statue is left of Sheikh Mujib in Bangladesh. Nothing left of and similar cases happened in Assad. And one more similarity, let me tell you. Assad also fled to Moscow, to his master. Hasina fled to Delhi, to her master. And there is one more similarity. The rise of Sheikh Mujib started in 1971. The rise of Assad's father was also started in 1971. see the similarity between the fate of these two authoritarian regimes. So I want to be optimistic in my conclusion that maybe this is a change. Maybe is it again we see the Arab Spring? I don't know, but let's hope that it is again another wave of another wind of Arab Spring, which was lost in Egypt in 2011. It started and then it lost in Tunisia, it lost in Egypt and everywhere. But now Bangladesh has become successful. The people of Bangladesh has become successful. Assad, the people of Syria has become successful. But there are a difference between the situation in Syria and Bangladesh. The entire revolution in Bangladesh is homegrown. No foreign power was involved in the case of Bangladesh. It is unique. It's sort of unique revolution but in the case of Syria, too many outside, equation is there. Too many geopolitics, in the case of Syria. So Bangladesh, I think it is an ideal scenario where really the people themselves can fight against autocracy. So this should be the ideal, because when people can change its government without seeking help from outside, then they remain independent. They are not indebted to anybody, to any foreign powers. In the case of Syria, I don't know. That's
a different scenario.
So we'll have to wait for it. So I don't want to prolong my speech. So this is the situation. So in Bangladesh, and also another thing, in Bangladesh it was an unarmed revolution. Unarmed civilian fought against the tyranny. So this is another unique part. In Syria, it was guns fighting against the guns. But in Bangladesh, the guns were from the state. The people were without any. So it shows that power of the people is supreme if Allah wants it. Because after all, if Allah wants it, then only it can really happen. The power of the people probably always there. But in the case of Bangladesh, probably Allah also said to Sheikh Hasina, enough is enough. Your time is over. Thank you very much.
Shukran. It is indeed, Bangladeshi revolution is a case in study. I mean, it should be dealt in a separate book, Ustad Mahmudur Rahman. Maybe the barakah of today's meeting that we will come up with a suggestion to you. If we can, draft a book in comparing the Bangladeshi and Syrian revolutions in different aspects. What do you think, Brother Mizan? Don't you think it's a good idea? I will allow you, definitely. But, three things that came to my mind, actually, when you are talking. You said that there was no foreign intervention in paving the way for the Bangladesh revolution, which is a unique case, by the way. Unarmed masses, marching against the police and the state officials and achieving their goal. I mean, this is something that we have to applaud. We have to, study more and get more information. That being said, but I would like to know first to what extent the social media played a role in increasing huge role, huh? Okay, in increasing the political awareness of the youth.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
Social media by the diaspora. The diaspora played a brilliant role.
Massive role, huh?
Massive role in this revolution.
Okay.
Through social media.
All right. My second question is even more important and pressing issue. What are the root causes of the alliance between Hindutva and Zionism, and what will be the implications of that alliance on the world peace, especially on Muslim Ummah, do you think?
You see, it is a very dangerous combination as far as it is a very, it's a threat for the Muslim world, the combination of Hindutva and Jainism. Let me answer you like this. Actually, before 1/11, Bangladesh was having a democracy. Bangladesh actually enjoyed democracy for about 15 years, from 1991 to 2006. There were 3 governments, all were democratically elected, and every time the incumbent lost. So that was a very interesting case also. Every time, all 3 times, incumbent government, they lost. But after 1/11, what happened? Because the infamous theory of Bush, with us or against us, the theory of Bush, you all remember. So what happened? At that time, the American administration, they thought that their natural ally in South Asia should be India. And India should be given a free hand to rule over South Asia. Why? Because according to Huntington thesis, after the fall of the Soviet Union, the challenge of the Western civilization were from, number 1, China, and number 1 from the Islamic world. So that was the theory of Huntington. And the Bush administration, the Washington establishment at that time, they actually followed in letter and spirit the Huntington theory. So they thought in 2001, after 1/11 especially, that to control the rise of Islam in South Asia, India has to play the role of the police, the regional police. So that authority was given to India. And Bangladesh became a victim for this policy. Because after that, the democracy was gone. And I always maintain, I wrote about it in many of my articles, in my book also, that actually the Western world, they don't want democracy in Islamic world. They say about it, but they like the autocrats in Islamic world. Because if there is democracy in Islamic world, I am sure in majority of the Muslim countries, the pro-Islamic force will win in the election. And which America, they don't want, which the West don't want. And because of that, the Hindutva and the Jainism, they combined, they want the authoritarian regimes to remain in the Muslim world. So you asked me one question, brother, in the beginning, that what will be what is going to be the third country or the next country after Bangladesh revolution and Syria revolution? Why not Egypt? I don't know. I don't know whether the Egyptian there. So maybe.
Allah knows
maybe.
that.
I don't know. Why not Egypt? Because I'm sure if there was a Islamic government in Egypt, Israel would not have dared to continue its massacre of Palestinian people for 14 months. Because they are doing it with the support of Egypt and with the support of the many Muslim countries. And it's sad, but it's true.
Okay. Thank you. Brother Mizan,
Thank you so much.
take the microphone, please. He's
Thank you
also
very
from
much.
Bangladesh, and we always talk about the...
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Professor Selim. Really enjoyed it. And I want to thank Ahmed for a fantastic last couple of days. Ahmed's a good friend, and we've been debating, discussing. But I'm honoured that this is one of the very first rare forum where Bangladesh is actually considered in many Muslim forums. So, but really, the title is actually quite interesting that you've compared Bangladesh and the Balkans in Bosnia. And Professor, we've had many debates and discussions ourselves. The history of Turkey, Bangladesh, Bengal being part of a Turkish civilized Islamic, from Balkans to Bengal, Ahmed Shahab's idea. But I want to go back a bit further, where I disagree with Mahmudur, Rahman, Ustad, fantastic. I think Bangladesh is part of a bigger problem, the whole subcontinent. Since the fall of the Mughals, our Muslim rule sovereignty has suffered since the arrival of the British. The conception of Bangladesh, India and Pakistan will always be a problem. Okay, we're intrinsically linked. If we look back to the Turkish Sultanate rule of Bangladesh, which is most Turks don't even know about, but fundamentally moving forward now, Bangladesh will always be a geostrategical chess-playing pawn between the major powers of China, US, and India. India is a civilizational state. There's nothing much you can do about that. You have to engage with India, like it or not. So really, this revolution, it's questionable if it's a revolution. That's the school of thought I come from, and I'm sure my family and folks, well, I'm in Britain most of the time, but
I said he's from Bangladesh, but he was born and raised in England, in London, yeah.
We have supported, but I think moving forward, really, it's an identity crisis for Bangladesh. Is it, we've got rid of, and I know it's very questionable, we got rid of our Bengali Kemalism so to speak. Okay, now is where do we move? What's the narrative we're going to build? But I personally think it's a phase. It's going to be a very difficult struggle. I believe in a bigger India-wider project, so to speak, where Bengalis can play a bigger role in that with Pakistan.
It creates many opportunities for Muslims and for citizens of Bangladesh.
Absolutely. People don't realize Bangladesh is not only one of the largest Muslim population countries, the Gulf would collapse if it wasn't for the Bengali workers, from constructions to everything. Most of your T-shirts and thobes and whatever it comes from Bangladesh. The economics and statistics are endless. I don't have to. We have more Nobel Prize winners than most of the Muslim world. People don't realize that. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, it's there. Most of NASA would collapse without our engineers. I can go on. Point on the matter is, I think rethinking Bengal and Bangladesh is thinking about the bigger next 50 to 100 years. Currently, right now, I just hope the new governance, the new next governance, whoever comes in, whether it's temporary, can find the jobs of these young folks. It's great getting rid of someone. Hasina had to go anyway. She was going to go anyway, regardless. If you don't find the jobs of these new generation, you're going to lose another generation, and who knows what will come afterwards. Thank you very much.
Shukran. We are going to have 2 more questions, and then we'll end up there. And please introduce yourself, and then ask your question. Okay. İngilizce sor ya, sorun değil.
Peki, would it be better if Bangladesh did not separate from India?
Once again? Söyle bakalım. Yeah.
Would it be better if Bangladesh did not separate from India?
First of all, I want to react to his comment. It was not his question. I want to react. The identity, he asked a question about what will be the identity if the Bengali is gone. I have an answer to that question. I don't know whether you will accept it, whether the other Bengalis will accept it. I have the identity of a Bengali Muslim. But why I'm saying it Bengali Muslim, I want to go back to history a little bit. Because the Bengal as a political entity was first set up by a Muslim ruler, not by the indigenous Hindu ruler. It was set up by a ruler, his name was Samsuddin Ilyas Shah. Samsuddin Ilyas Shah was from Turkish origin, and Samsuddin Ilyas Shah set up the first Bengal in the 13th century. And that was, he called himself, the title was Sultan-e-Bangla. So Bengal was, as a Sultan of Bengal, that was the first time, as a political entity, he used it and he combined all of Bengal together. Before that, Bengal was fragmented into 8-9 states. So if we start our history from Samsuddin Ilyas Shah, probably we can find a solution on our identity, probably. I'm just saying as an academic.
Yes, yes.
So this is one.
Valid point.
And to reply to your question that if it was not, break up from India, you have to understand the situation of 1946. Because Bengal was under British rule for nearly 190 years. And they were under attack, the Bengali Muslims especially. They were under attack from 2 sides. One was the British colonial administration. And second attack was from the Hindus, the Bengali Hindus, because after the fall of the last ruler, the last Muslim ruler, Siraj-ud-Dawla was defeated by the British in 1757. And after his fall, what happened? The British, they became friendly with the Hindus, and they gave the jobs and all advantage to the Hindus. So Hindus were, so the Bengali Muslims became the victim. So they remained victim for 190 years. So after the 190 years, when the opportunity came, they decided to become a citizen of an independent Muslim country. They didn't want
Which was the right decision.
They didn't want to remain under Hindu rule.
Yes.
So that is the reason why it was very interesting in let me tell you, whoever aware of the history, you know it, but who doesn't know the history, it was very interesting. There was a a democratic election took place, a polling took place, that what the Bengali Muslim want, whether they want to remain with India or they want to be a part of Pakistan. And they all decided to become a part of Pakistan. So it was a democratic decision. It was a democratic decision by our forefathers.
People's own will.
Yeah, and by our forefathers. They decided to become a part of Pakistan.
All right, excellent, good answer. Last question, if there is anyone, please. Sister from Kashmir, right? Just take the mic and introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Taskin and I'm from Kashmir and I'm pursuing bachelor's in international relations and political science. So you talked about Zionism and Hindutva as quote unquote Netanyahu said that it's a marriage made in heaven and executed on earth. So my question to you is that how big of a threat is this really particular combination, this really particular ittihad that you would say between the Zionist forces and the Hindutva forces? And would it pose a threat to the sovereignty of Bangladesh? And like, I want to know from you, like, your thoughts, like how big of a problem it is for
Or Pakistan,
Bangladesh.
maybe.
And Pakistan and whole of the region from Kashmir to Bangladesh and all of the subcontinent,
Okay.
including Afghanistan.
Thank you. Thank you, sister.
You know, to me, the bigger threat for the Islamic world is the disunity of the Islamic world. It is the bigger threat than the combined threat of the Jainism and the Hindutva. Because that's my understanding of the problem. Because why Jainism and Hindutva, it's becoming successful? Because of our internal disunity. So we have to look into ourselves. We have to stop blaming others. They will do it. It's their job. They will fight
their
it
job.
this way. Our job is to unite, and which we have failed for the last, I don't know, centuries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shukran jazilan. Thank you very much for brother Mahmudur Rahman, all the participants for your presence and for your contribution. Thank you. Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah see you in the next session. Shukran.
Değerli katılımcılar, günün anlam
Distinguished friends, we are going to present our speakers. Jahannuma board member Ahmet Mahmud is going to present our speaker and our panelists with his gifts, with their gifts.